Why is it that the policy at the USCIS district offices is to be cruel and mean and to say no to an advance parole? Due to COVID and shortages of labor at USCIS, somehow advance parole stopped being issued and we were on an 11-month backlog. People have plans, people have places to go, people to see. If you qualify for an emergency to leave the United States, you can go to the district office with an appointment and they're supposed to issue the advance parole. They don't. Wish I could explain why you can't get a visa to come in and you can't get an advance parole to go out because none of it makes sense to me.
But what you're saying is they're making appointments for these people?
Yeah.
And yet they're saying no after that?
Correct. I don't care if you're on the left or if you're on the right or if you're in the middle. I just think it's important to think about the information that they're feeding us. So you must qualify for an emergency appointment. Why it has to be an emergency, I don't know. But you have to qualify for an emergency appointment through calling the 1-800 number. You call the 1-800 number, you wait up to 72 hours for them to call you back. They can call you back at any hour of the night on your cell phone. If you miss the call, too bad, so sad. But if you make the call and you go through the bona fides of your case with the officer, if she thinks you qualify, or if he thinks you qualify, they will set you up with an appointment to go to the local district office. We used to be able to make appointments at the local district office in the Obama administration by just going online, giving the reason you have to go there, and making your own appointment. Donald Trump took that all away. So now we have terrible communications with USCIS. Untrained people who don't know what they're doing, not only don't know what they're doing, are not helpful. Like, at least be kind. What happened to be kind? I had an interview with a client where I decided to do it telephonically and not go to the district office. And I actually had the officer sitting there and not telling the truth and saying that he was waiting for the fingerprints to come back. And there's just no way. You can't get an interview at USCIS without all of that information already being done, handled, and taken care of. So he tells he doesn't tell the truth about why he's not adjudicating the case at that moment. Says he's able to hang on to the case between 2 and 90 days. The good news is that he approved the case the next day. But when I called him on him not waiting for any notification from the FBI or any other things which would prevent him from approving the case, he basically yelled at me, and he was very nasty. And I just don't understand why it can't just be a straight interaction. There's always an element. I shouldn't say always. Almost always. Once in a while, you can come upon someone who's really willing to help, but it's in that event they're usually ready to retire by the end of the week. It's like, oh, Friday's my last day.
Now, if you weren't there on the phone with that client, calling the officer out, do you think he would have approved it that fast?
That's a really good question. I think that there's a culture of hostility. I think it's intentional. I've been called to the Newark, New Jersey office for interviews, and when I get there with the interview notice in hand, they tell me that it's a mistake, that it went out by mistake, and I really didn't need to come there. Can you imagine that two hard-working people took off from work that day to come to the interview? I went from Long Island to New Jersey to attend the interview on behalf of the client, and they're paying me for it. And we get there and they tell us that it was canceled, but they don't notify us of cancellations. I just can't think of a more inappropriate, inconsiderate, unnecessarily cruel and unkind practice, especially at a place of employment.
So pretty much to sum it up, a big chunk could be solved by communication.
Yes. In the days of Bill Clinton, immigration was about customer service. And the officers being kind and knowing that they were providing a benefit for people. Now it's about anti-fraud, not letting people in, having the service have very broad discretion, even over humanitarian cases. You file an adjustment of status for a U visa now, and you get an RFE that talks about the fact that they have discretion within the statute not to approve the adjustment, that you now have to prove, based on humanitarian grounds, why they should grant the adjustment. So if you had any idea what it took to get a U visa approved, which is very, very difficult, and then people stay here in status but not being able to travel because you can't leave, and then they qualify to file their adjustment of status, and then now you get a request for further evidence that says an adjustment of status from a U visa is not an automatic right. You have to prove on humanitarian grounds why USCIS should issue the approval of the adjustment of status. One of our clients was standing at a corner and had his eye shot out from a group of kids that were using him as target practice at a red light. What we did to get him his U visa, and now with his the filing of his adjustment, we have to prove why he should be able to remain on humanitarian grounds? Really? I just don't understand. And we have a labor shortage in this country. We don't have employees to work at restaurants, dry cleaners, trucking companies, professional organizations. I mean, these policies make no sense. We're all trying to work diligently to reverse the Trump policies that were implemented, but it's much more difficult to reverse a policy than to implement one, and to change the behavior and the listening of employees to train them to go back to being kind, knowing that they're in a service business, and that people are paying a lot of money in filing fees to get a particular service. Listen, I know that immigration fraud exists, but not in the context of this particular conversation. We're talking about credible cases and behavior of USCIS employees that just make no sense in the domain of human kindness, or of being reasonable, or of doing their job to adjudicate a case. These are just my thoughts. Like, what are you thinking about?